Simon, Father Simon, Brother Matthew, and Sister Holly Susie Katie. No baby names to be announced yet.
None yet.
No.
My confession, that's not anything to do with Holly, by the way. She's not having a baby.
No.
This is about Susie, who has had a baby.
Yes.
My confession relates to something my friend and I did in the late 80s. We were, I think, 16 at the time. For our continuing safety, can we be called John, that's me, and Paul, as I still visit the place from time to time, and the poor victim still lives there. We lived in a village on the edge of the Staffordshire moorlands, where a public footpath passed through and up over the hills. It is popular with walkers and could be fairly busy on good days. We used the path over the hills to visit a school friend who lived about a couple of miles away in another village. One day while we were walking up the hill, we were suddenly confronted by a woman dressed in walking gear who started a conversation with us, asking where we were from and what our names were and so on. I thought for a moment she fancied one of us until another young woman appeared from behind a clump of bushes, straightening her clothes. It turned out that the first woman was just distracting us, so we didn't catch a glimpse of her friend having a call of nature. So they took off with hardly a goodbye, but it got me thinking. PG certificate? I don't know.
Okay. Bit late, anyway.
Yeah. If you looked around, there were no other bushes or places for walkers to satisfy the call of nature inside. So we came up with a plan that could earn us some money and give us a bit of a laugh. We made a board with the following message: Hillside Services, and then underneath, Last Bush Before Buxton.
Very good.
Which could be the name of a John Ronson book.
Definitely.
But anyway, it is it.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
This probably wasn't true, The Last Bush Before Buxton, but it just sounded good. We fastened a toilet roll to it and an honesty box and hid behind the low stone wall with a flock of sheep about 20 yards away, which was parallel to the footpath, to watch what happened. Well, we had a little luck. Most people looked around expecting a trick from one of those always hilarious practical joke television shows. Most walked by, but one or two did use the services, taking our toilet paper, and we actually made about 50 pence.
Wow.
In the 80s, that was, I mean,
Yeah.
buy you
More than 2 donuts.
a house.
Yeah.
Then it went all wrong, I'm afraid. We found out later that week that the farmer whose land the footpath runs through found out about it. And when he went to the place where we'd put up the board, it just so happened that he found a young boy called Neville. We think he was about 12 as he started at our school the following year from the adjacent farm, poking around in the honesty box. So it looked as though it was his handiwork, because the boundary between the two farms was the wall we hid behind. According to the talk of the town, Father Grumpy, shall we call him, threatened him with his shotgun, and the poor kid... seems a little bit excessive.
Okay.
And the poor kid ran off home. I've turned that bit down.
Yeah.
The police were involved, but nothing came of it, apart from Grumpy had all the bushes chopped down, so there was nowhere for the walkers to relieve themselves at all, apart from on the open moorland, and that's probably an offence. We wish for forgiveness from the boy who was threatened with the gun, and walkers who have had to find somewhere else to go, and also, I suppose, from the bushes, whose life was cruelly terminated by Father Grumpy. I don't think anyone has actually sought the apology, forgiveness of a bush before. But that's what John is doing. Also, feel sorry for Neville. Don't particularly feel sorry for Father Grumpy. He does sound remarkably grumpy. Let's just check in with the voice of authority who has to speak on behalf of the institution. Sister Holly Suzakaty.
Yeah, lots of thoughts about this. I have a real problem with the whole spending money to spend a penny. I don't like that. If you go abroad, sometimes they have loos, and they're usually disgusting loos, and you have to still pay to use them, and that's very annoying. And so really, I'm kind of anti the whole charging people to use the loo. It's not even a good loo.
It's an honesty box.
It's a random bush in some forest or by some path. I totally against that. And also poor Neville, he was really young. He sounded very young. He was 11 or something. 12. Yes. Poor 12-year-old boy, and he was threatened with a shotgun. That's not good for anyone. So no, not forgiven.
Not often threatened with a shotgun actually makes it through.
No, it doesn't always.
But it was a farmer, and it was the old times.
Oh, it was a farmer. So
I think he had a blunderbuss. It was a blunderbuss.
Blunderbuss, was it?
Like
in the
in
20s.
the Beano. Brother from another gutter.
Yeah, well, clearly, Farmer Grumpy needs to get a sense of perspective because really didn't warrant bringing out the blunderbuss, did it? I'm not going to be bothered to either about the bushes because Circle of Life, not going to get too graphic about it, but it's composting, probably good for them in the long run. Good forward thinking in having a toilet roll with you. Not many of us would take that one on a walk, but I like your thinking. And don't have a go at tiresome TV shows because that's exactly what you were doing, is coming up with a prank and then hiding behind a wall. But I'm going to forgive because it sounded pretty funny. And last